So in the sixth part of the Plain Truth, we're looking at the swing plane, and our first principle is to understand that when hitting a stake into the ground with a hammer, a vertical blow is in plane. Useless, glancing and pure. And then we're going to understand that the arc ostensibly is a circle, but in function we go down the post, and the longer we go down the post, the more effective the blow of driving the post into the ground and through the earth. Okay, so yes, there's a blow in plane. It is circular in its path, in its journey, in its arc I should say, but having created the arc lives in the plane and goes down for as long, and nothing has changed when it comes to the golf string. The same is true. We're going to hit it and we're going to go down the plane line for as long as we can. Dr. Paul Hurrian measured with force plates the way that golfers' footwork and weight shift. Every single player on the European Tour at that time got to the top and were all linear through impact. They were not turning left. They were going linear, and the longer they were linear, the better the player, and even they eventually had to go left. But going left is something that should happen way after. If as a club golfer you're turning left and flattening the shaft, the greatest bit of stuff to bamboozle you, flattening the shaft in the old days used to be called a fade shot. So don't worry about it, okay? What matters is the journey of the club head through the plane line. So we've got my peg here, and I've got the ball. In my case, I'm ping black code bog standard. So this is my best movement in plane, and I just catch the ball. But can you see, I keep going. I keep driving the ball along the plane line, okay? So it's got a bit stuck, as you can see, but you can see at the peg, it goes down that line for as long as it can, okay? Let me just show you that again. That's good. So here's the blow in plane. There's impact, but we're not just hitting it, we're driving it, and we're driving it through towards the target. And when I then go to the floor, the plane is now inclined on a 6-arm plane. I load. There it is in plane, inclined, but it's the same thing. I'm going to not just strike it, I'm going to elongate the strike for as long as I can. And I think you can appreciate that for me elongating the strike, the weight shift is going forward before it turns. If you teach the turn, you're doing your pupils a disservice, unless of course you want them to pull the ball. So we've now got the golf ball at the end of the stake. This is the path I want the ball to go along, just right of the flag, because I'm this side of the ball. So let's have a look at that. I load, and I come through, and I elongate the strike. Now, if you're being taught to turn left and to stand up through the shot, then everything is going to go left, and yes, you will flatten the shaft. Okay, that's where you're going to go. What I prefer to see is what the best players do. They elongate the strike and they go down the plane line for as long as they can. So I'm just going to rest that there, and now I can drive the ball just right at the target, elongating the strike. Can you see that? A la Trevino. I can't go any further, so now it will turn left. Now, what I want to just show you is that piece of knowledge is fantastic when you've got water or trouble on the left. If you turn left through the ball, you're going to describe a plane's path here to impact. Nothing wrong with that so far. However, we know we want the ball to go through, and we elongate the hit. But if we just treat it as an arc and turn left, where's the club head? It's departed from the plane line. If I cock my wrist, the club has returned to the plane line. So this is one of the reasons the DeChambeau still pulls his mid-irons, because he's taken the wrist hinge out. If you approach the ball with no wrist hinge, the club turns left. Wrist hinge would have kept the club head down the plane line for longer. So when you look at Tom Watson and Colin Montgomery, you're seeing people who live on the upright plane. They're above the optimum, they're upright, the swing's like a Ferris wheel. Tom Watson is moving the club like this. If Tom Watson got to here and flattened the shaft and turned left, the ball would go over there. So you've got to mix your medicine. If you want fade spin or anti-hook, then stand up and flatten the shaft. But if you want neutral draw that starts just right the flag, I recommend that you don't flatten the shaft, but elongate the strike instead. So let me show you that. It's not just a hit. It's not just a question of hitting. It's a question of driving the ball. If you drive the ball and turn left, you're going to pay a price for it. But if you can elongate the strike through towards just right of the flag, there's the elongation and there's the strike. Again, going back to Paul Hurrian's studies, he found that all players in the European Tour from the top were linear, and they only turned left after a while. And he also found that the better the player, the later they turned left. So I'm not saying the body doesn't turn left. What I'm saying is it's not the movement that creates the downswing and impact. It's something that happens at the very end of the motion. So important to drive the ball through towards the target and finish through in plane. If you turn left and flatten the shaft, then you're limiting your ability and you're not doing what science says.